The deep space exploration vessel Horizon cut through the void at the edge of mapped space, its engines humming with a steady rhythm that had become as familiar as breathing to the crew. Captain Jack Moore stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back, watching the endless expanse of stars through the main viewport. "Captain, I'm picking up unusual energy readings," said Officer Patel, her fingers dancing across the sensor console. "Nothing like I've ever seen before." Moore raised an eyebrow. "Source?" "Approximately 3 million kilometers off our starboard bow. It's fluctuating. Almost like it's breathing." Science Officer Tom Wilson looked up from his station, brow furrowed. "Captain, I recommend caution. These readings don't match any known stellar phenomenon in our database." Moore nodded slowly, considering. The Horizon had been dispatched to chart the outer reaches, to find the unknown. And here it was, calling to them. "Helm, adjust course." "Let's take a closer look," Moore ordered. Wilson stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Sir, we should maintain distance until we understand what we're dealing with." "Noted, Officer Wilson." Moore's voice was firm but not unkind. "But exploration requires risk. We'll approach slowly and maintain full shields." As the Horizon altered its trajectory, the crew fell into a tense silence. The main screen displayed the sensor readings, pulsing waves of energy that defied classification. "Magnification at maximum," announced Patel after several minutes. "Visual contact in 3, 2, 1. The screen shifted, and collective gasps filled the bridge. Floating against the backdrop of space was a ship, if it could even be called that. Its hull gleamed with a metal unlike any human alloy, catching starlight in ways that made it appear to shimmer in and out of existence. "My God," whispered Wilson. "It's huge." The vessel stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, but its shape defied conventional design. Parts of the hull seemed to curve inward at impossible angles, creating sections that appeared both solid and transparent simultaneously. "No visible propulsion systems," noted Engineer Lopez from her station. "No standard engine emissions." "How does it move? Is it active?" Moore asked, unable to tear his eyes from the screen. Patel shook her head. "Minimal power signatures. If I had to guess, I'd say it's in some kind of dormant state." "Life signs?" "None that our sensors can detect." "But sir, these readings." She looked up, eyes wide. "If I'm interpreting them correctly, some of the materials in that ship shouldn't exist. They're theoretical." Moore straightened his uniform. "Wilson, assemble a scanning team. I want every piece of data we can gather without direct contact. Lopez, prepare a drone for close reconnaissance." The bridge buzzed with activity as Moore continued to study the impossible ship. Its design featured no symmetry, no recognizable patterns. Sections of the hull bore markings, symbols in no language ever recorded in human history. "Drone deployed," Lopez announced minutes later. "Telemetry coming through now." The images sent back confirmed what they were seeing was no illusion. Close-up views revealed a surface that seemed to shift subtly even as they watched, as if the material itself was in constant flux. "Sir," Patel's voice cut through Moore's thoughts. "Something's changed. I'm detecting power surges throughout the vessel." Wilson moved quickly to his station. "Confirmed. It's activating." "Yellow alert," Moore ordered immediately. "Maintain distance. Lopez, recall the drone." But it was too late. As the drone approached the mysterious ship's hull, a pulse of energy rippled outward. The drone's transmission cut off instantly. "What happened?" Moore demanded. "Unknown, sir," Lopez replied. "The drone was absorbed. There was no explosion, no debris." Moore was about to order the Horizon to back away when Patel called out again. "Captain. The ship, It's moving. Sure enough, the massive vessel had begun to rotate, slowly reorienting itself. Not toward them, but as if awakening after a long sleep, testing its abilities. It's scanning us, Wilson said, his voice tight. Our systems, our composition, everything. Moore felt a chill run down his spine. Humanity had encountered alien technology before, but nothing like this, nothing that so completely defied their understanding of physics and engineering. Open a standard greeting on all frequencies, he ordered. A tense minute passed. Then another. Sir, Patel said quietly. It's responding. The boarding shuttle approached the impossible vessel with cautious precision. Inside, Security Chief Lisa Reed checked her equipment one final time. Remember, she addressed her team, we observe only. Touch nothing unless cleared. Stay in visual contact at all times. Beside her, Engineer Mike Foster nodded, his eyes fixed on the approaching ship. I still can't believe we're doing this. The shuttle's pilot navigated toward what appeared to be an airlock, a hexagonal opening that had appeared on the hull shortly after the ship had sent its response, a simple mathematical sequence that universal translators interpreted as an invitation. Docking complete, the pilot announced. Environmental readings show breathable atmosphere beyond the airlock. Reed led the team through the seal. The moment they crossed the threshold, they felt it, a subtle wrongness, as if the laws of physics were being gently bent. The corridors, whispered Foster, pointing ahead. Look at them. The passageway they entered seemed to shift subtly behind them, angles changing when viewed from different positions. What looked like a straight path forward would reveal gentle curves when approached. Gravity fluctuations, noted Dr. Ava Lee, checking her instruments. It's changing room by room, sometimes within the same space. Reed fought disorientation as they moved deeper. Stay focused. Foster, any idea what we're looking at? The engineer shook his head, running specialized scanners over the walls. The material, it's responding to our presence. Almost like it's alive. They followed passageways that seemed to guide them, rather than being fixed architecture. 20 minutes into their exploration, they entered what could only be a command center, a vast circular chamber with stations positioned in a pattern that made no mathematical sense, yet somehow felt perfectly arranged. Foster approached one console cautiously. The surface was smooth, without buttons or screens, yet as his hand hovered above it, light patterns emerged beneath his palm. It's reacting to me, he breathed. Don't, Reed began, but Foster had already placed his hand on the surface. The room hummed to life. Displays materialized in the air around them, star charts, data streams, and symbols flowing in 3 dimensions. I think it's designed to interface with any species, Foster said, his voice filled with wonder. It's reading my neural patterns, adapting to how I think. A holographic display activated in the center of the room, cycling through thousands of symbols before forming English letters, broken and imperfect. Welcome. Long time waiting. You are suitable. My God, whispered Dr. Lee. It's talking to us. Ask it what it is, Reed ordered, her hand resting on her weapon. Foster hesitated, then thought the question clearly in his mind. The response materialized immediately. I am last defense. I am weapon against the coming darkness. I need your help. The holographic display pulsed with each word, casting strange shadows throughout the command center. Captain Moore had joined the boarding team after receiving Foster's urgent message, his face grave as he studied the alien text. Ask it to explain, Moore ordered. What darkness? What defense? Foster focused his thoughts, and the ship's AI responded by transforming the holographic display. The star-filled void around them shifted, showing an ancient civilization of incredible advancement. Cities that spanned continents, orbital habitats encircling dozens of worlds, and ships that traveled between stars as easily as humans crossed rooms. Builders. My creators, the text explained. Gone now. The display shifted again, showing a creeping darkness that engulfed entire systems. It wasn't a physical darkness, but rather a visualization of something consuming technology, civilization, life itself. The devourer. Hive mind. Consumes all. Adapts to all defenses. More stepped forward. Is this a historical record or a warning? Both, came the reply. The hologram shifted to show the collapse of the builder civilization, system by system, despite their advanced technology. Then it displayed the creation of the ship they now stood in, a final desperate measure. I am designed beyond conventional physics. Undetectable to devourer. Last weapon. Dr. Lee checked her instruments, shaking her head in disbelief. Captain, according to these readings, parts of this ship exist partially outside our dimension. That's why it looks impossible, because it literally defies our physical laws. The AI continued its explanation, showing how the builders had sacrificed their entire remaining civilization to create this single vessel, a ship that could hide from the devourer by operating on principles outside normal spacetime. Why are you revealing yourself to us now? Moore asked. The holographic display shifted to show a distant region of space where something massive appeared to be stirring from dormancy. Devourer hibernates for millennia between feeding cycles. Awakening soon. Detected your transmissions. Foster felt cold sweat form on his brow as coordinates appeared. Captain, if I'm reading this correctly, the hibernation zone is only 2 months' travel from Earth. The AI confirmed with a pulse of red light. 63 of your days until first scouts reach your homeworld. How do we know this isn't some kind of trap? Reed asked, voicing the suspicion that had been growing in her mind. An elaborate deception? The ship seemed to understand her doubt. The hologram shifted again, showing the final moments of the builders, not as a conquering race, but as guardians who had sacrificed themselves to create a weapon for whoever might come after them. I waited for species advanced enough. You qualify. Barely. Moore's jaw tightened. And what exactly do you need from us? The answer appeared simply. Crew. Purpose. Direction. The implications hung heavy in the air. This impossible warship, with power beyond human comprehension, was offering itself as humanity's defense against an approaching apocalypse. If they chose to believe it. Absolutely not. We should dismantle it immediately. Admiral Ben Thompson's fist came down hard on the conference table, making the digital displays flicker. 3 days had passed since the Horizon's discovery. The mysterious vessel had been towed to Earth's largest orbital shipyard, surrounded by a fleet of warships with weapons trained on it, not that anyone believed conventional weapons would do much against something so advanced. Captain Moore stood firm. Admiral, with all due respect, you weren't there. You didn't see what it showed us. What it claims it showed you, Thompson countered. How convenient that an ancient superweapon appears just when we need it, offering to save us from a threat we can't detect. Dr. Anna Parker, Earth's leading xenoarchaeologist, cleared her throat. The ship's construction contains elements that match theoretical materials described in ruins we've found on 7 different worlds. If this is a deception, it's one with remarkable historical accuracy. The Emergency Council meeting had stretched into its 5th hour. Military leaders, scientists, and political representatives from Earth's United Nations sat around the massive table, each with their own agenda. Let's assume for a moment the threat is real, said Representative Jones, her voice measured. What then? Do we hand over control of the most powerful weapon in known space to an artificial intelligence we don't understand? Foster, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. It doesn't want control. It wants partnership. He looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes. Since their return, he'd spent every waking moment with the ship's systems. The AI was designed to integrate with biological minds, he continued. It needs our creativity, our intuition. Things it can't replicate. Thompson scoffed. And you know this how, exactly? Foster hesitated. It showed me. Connected with me. The room erupted in alarmed voices. Thompson's face darkened. You allowed an alien AI into your mind? You've compromised yourself, engineer. It wasn't like that, Foster protested. It was more like translation. Showing me how its systems work by using concepts I could understand. Parker leaned forward. This could be the most significant archaeological and technological discovery in human history. Dismantling it would be a crime against knowledge itself. Knowledge won't matter if it's a Trojan horse, Thompson retorted. The debate was interrupted by an urgent message. All heads turned to the central display as a junior officer appeared, face pale. Sirs, ma'ams, the ship just did something. We can't explain it. The view shifted to external cameras showing the impossible warship. For 3 seconds, it simply vanished, leaving empty space in the docking cradle. Then it reappeared, exactly as before. What just happened? Thompson demanded, rising from his seat. It phased partially out of our reality, Foster whispered, eyes wide with understanding. It was demonstrating. On the conference room's main screen, a message appeared, bypassing all security protocols. Threat approaches. Debate wastes time. Decision required. Foster's fingers hovered over the ship's interface, no longer hesitant but moving with growing confidence. In the 2 weeks since Earth's leadership had reluctantly approved the mission, he'd spent nearly every waking hour aboard the vessel, now officially designated Anomaly 1 but increasingly called the Defiance by its growing crew. Try the navigation system again, instructed the ship's AI, its voice now clearer, more human-like after continued interaction. Foster closed his eyes, placing his palms flat against the console. Information flowed directly into his mind, not as words or images, but as pure understanding. Star maps, dimensional coordinates, folding points where reality thinned. I can see it, he murmured. The fold space transitions. Behind him, Dr. Lee monitored his neural patterns with concern. His brain activity is off the charts. This knowledge transfer is changing his neural pathways. Captain Moore, now permanently assigned to the Defiance, watched from the doorway. Is it harmful? Not harmful, Foster answered before Lee could respond. Just different. I'm processing information in new ways. The ship had been teaching them, or rather, teaching Foster, who then translated for the others. Conventional physics gave way to concepts that human language struggled to express, dimensions that intersected with our own at mathematical angles, energy that existed simultaneously as matter and void. I think I can initiate a fold jump now, Foster said, opening his eyes. A small one. More straightened. We haven't been cleared for any test flights. It won't be a flight, Foster explained, his eyes slightly unfocused. We'll remain in exactly the same physical location. We'll just step sideways for a moment. Before Moore could object, Foster's hands danced across the interface. The lighting throughout the ship shifted to a deep purple, and a sensation like gentle pressure touched every surface. Fold in 3, 2, 1. Reality blinked. For 3 hours, the Defiance simply vanished from Earth orbit. Panic erupted throughout the defense fleet. Admiral Thompson ordered maximum alert status, convinced they'd been deceived. Then, precisely 3 hours later, the ship reappeared exactly where it had been, with one difference. Foster stood at the center of the command deck, his eyes wide with wonder. I saw them, he whispered as Moore rushed to his side. Other worlds. Systems beyond our furthest exploration. The builders left markers, warnings, throughout the galaxy. Moore steadied him as Foster swayed slightly. "What did you see?" Foster's expression darkened. "The enemy. It's real. And it's already moving toward us." As if confirming his words, alarms blared throughout the ship. The long-range sensors, far more powerful than anything humans had developed, had detected unusual energy patterns at the edge of the solar system. The AI's voice echoed through the command deck, "First scouts approach. Earlier than predicted. The Devourer hungers." The first attack came without warning. Earth's outer defense platforms detected the alien scouts only moments before impact, sleek, obsidian shapes that moved like liquid through space, absorbing radar and LiDAR without reflection. "They're not ships in any conventional sense," Foster explained from the Defiance's command deck, watching the tactical display with terrible recognition. "They're extensions of the hive mind, drones that can assimilate any technology they encounter." Admiral Thompson's face filled one screen, jaw tight with tension. "Our weapons are having minimal effect. They adapt after each hit." Earth's defense fleet fired everything in their arsenal: railguns, plasma torpedoes, nuclear-tipped missiles. The first salvos destroyed several drones, but with each attack, the swarm seemed to learn, developing shields that precisely countered whatever had harmed them previously. "Permission to engage," Moore requested, standing ready at the primary station. Thompson hesitated only briefly. "Granted. Show us what that thing can do." Foster placed his hands on the control interface, his consciousness merging partially with the ship's AI. The Defiance moved with impossible grace, accelerating without inertia, appearing at points in space without crossing the distance between. "Weapons online," Foster announced, his voice overlaid with harmonics that weren't quite human. The impossible warship fired, not energy beams or projectiles, but distortions in reality itself. Where they touched the enemy drones, space twisted. Some drones simply ceased to exist, while others collapsed into themselves, folding inward until nothing remained. "My God," whispered Officer Patel, now permanently assigned to sensors. "They can't adapt to this." But the victory was brief. While the Defiance engaged the main swarm, smaller groups of drones bypassed Earth's defenses, striking population centers with surgical precision. Sydney, Lagos, and Rio de Janeiro suffered massive damage as the drones targeted communication centers and power infrastructure. "They're testing us," Foster realized, his expanded consciousness recognizing the pattern. "Learning our capabilities, our weaknesses." Long-range sensors detected the true threat: a massive concentration of energy approaching from the outer system, the main body of the Devourer's consciousness. Admiral Thompson's expression was grim as reports of casualties flooded in. "Captain Moore, the Defiance is now Earth's primary defense asset. All conventional forces will coordinate through you. We can't just keep reacting," Moore said, studying the tactical projections. "We need to strike at the source." Foster nodded, his eyes reflecting data streams only he could see. "The main fleet will arrive in 36 hours. We can intercept them before they reach Earth orbit, but..." "But what?" Thompson demanded. Foster looked up, the ship's knowledge flowing through his mind. "To destroy the Central Intelligence, we'll need to take Defiance directly into the heart of their fleet and activate the reality-warping core at maximum power." "A suicide mission," Moore said quietly. Foster's expression was serene, accepting. The builders designed this ship for exactly this moment. The Defiance hung in space, its impossible geometry shimmering as final preparations were completed. Earth's remaining defense fleet had positioned itself in a protective formation around the planet, knowing they were merely a last line of resistance if Moore and his crew failed. "Full jump calculations complete," reported Officer Patel, her voice steady despite the fear they all felt. Foster stood at the center of the command deck, his body connected to the ship through a web of light that had emerged from the deck itself. The merging of his consciousness with the ship's AI had accelerated in the final hours, no longer a partnership but a symbiosis. "The enemy fleet has entered Mars orbit," Wilson announced from the science station. "Thousands of vessels. Their energy output it's beyond anything we've ever recorded." Captain Moore looked at his crew, humans operating a vessel built by a long-dead species, their last hope against extinction. "We all volunteered," he reminded them. "But I need to be clear, the probability of return is minimal." No one spoke. No one needed to. Moore nodded to Foster. "Take us in." Foster closed his eyes, and reality folded. The Defiance appeared in the very heart of the Devourer's armada, a massive black sphere surrounded by thousands of smaller vessels, all interconnected by streams of dark energy. For a moment, the enemy seemed confused by the sudden appearance of the warship in their midst. "They recognize it," Foster whispered, his voice echoing strangely. "They've encountered the builders before." The ship shuddered as the first attacks hit. The Devourer recovered quickly, directing overwhelming force against the intruder. "Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7, Lopez reported as systems throughout the ship began to fail. "It doesn't matter," Foster said, his form beginning to glow with the same energy that powered the ship. "We're close enough." The AI's voice spoke directly into Foster's mind, "The core must be triggered manually. I cannot sustain function. You must become the ship." Foster understood. The builders had designed their last weapon to require both mechanical and biological components, a failsafe to prevent autonomous activation. "Do it," he told the AI. As the Defiance began to break apart under the enemy's assault, the AI transferred its entire consciousness into Foster's prepared mind. Knowledge, memories, and capabilities beyond human comprehension flooded into him, transforming him into something new. With his last human thought, Foster activated the reality-warping core. Spacetime folded in ways that defied comprehension. The laws of physics rewrote themselves in an expanding sphere centered on the Defiance. The Devourer, a being of pure technology, could not adapt to rules of reality that changed moment by moment. The massive fleet began to disintegrate, coming apart at the quantum level. Through nearly destroyed sensors, Earth watched as a blinding flash consumed Mars orbit. When it cleared, nothing remained, not the enemy, not the Defiance. 3 days later, as humanity began to rebuild, long-range scans detected a small object approaching Earth. Within its shattered hull, something that was no longer entirely human guided what remained of the impossible warship home. The first impossible victory of humanity was complete. But Foster knew, this was just the beginning.